Well, that lighting blows. But hi, happy Libra full moon. Interesting thing I found with this one is when you look at the planets from the sun. I believe it's Venus and Mercury. Let's see, let's double check. Let's double check. Because information's better when it's double checked. Yeah. Venus and Mercury are kind of like opposite ends of the sun, which is kind of like absorbing its power and its heat. But if you look at it from the Earth's perspective, beyond Jupiter and Neptune on top of each other, everything's kind of trailing behind with Venus in the lead, which I feel like with the two of those thoughts is very much about the ways in which we acknowledge our emotions in a way that sacrifices logic, which is very antithetical to the last thing that I did, the last time that I read. Which I mean is very much the turbulence of this wide gap between extremes that is so oft around us. I also think that a lot of these planets are in houses that influence social life and influence life on a greater scale. However, Black Lumelith is also within the 5th house, and I think that's going to feel counterintuitive to all of the energies in like Mercury and what have you in Pisces, or wherever it is. But there's a lot of social energy still within Taurus. There's a lot of social energy and internal energy still within Pisces, etc., etc. Don't put me on specifics. I'm having trouble remembering. Yeah, with that being said, Black Womb Lilith is very much sexy shadow side. It's a deeper version of self, for sure. Let me not chalk it all up to just shadow side or whatever. But is in a house of play and pleasure, and everything else is kind of structuring the world around us in a different way. Jupiter and Neptune being right on top of each other, I feel like is, like my first feeling looking at that was the ways in which social structure kind of keep us from dreaming big. In a time when we're reprogramming ourselves mentally and emotionally, and in a lot of ways physically. And like all of the ways society doesn't really want that to happen. And if they commodify it or if they incentivize something, then it kind of takes that away from us. And I saw this ad on the train that was like, if you've been having unrealistic ideas of the future, or like if you feel special, or if you know, like a lot of interesting kind of banal concepts that I think anybody who's intuitive might side with. It's like for a medical study, and I couldn't help but just attach my understanding of that with unrealistic ideas of the future, and the ways, yet again, in which the world's kind of veiling its own third eye, I suppose, and creating disbelief in the miraculous, distrust in the self, which is spirit. So take that for what you want. So there's many ways that can be applied. But with that being said, let's do the dang thing and pull some cards for this lovely full moon in Libra, which is also not even like coming into Libra. It's in like third decan Libra, which is a very mature balancing, and in a house of death and destruction. Scorpio house, which is funny because as somebody who's very Scorpio dominant, I adore Libras in many ways. There's a lot of Libra energy that I am drawn to, and the way that sits in that house, I think, is going to be an unruly balancing. Maybe not unruly, unjust, unfathomable. I think it's not going to be all sunshine and fucking daisies. It's going to be beauty maybe in darker places. And maybe that just means unknown places. Maybe that means learning through some intense strife. All right. Coming for me there. How sticky. Alrighty. I really should just do like a quick run through of what makes the best position in this. But all I really need from you is to be where you are. And shit, I can't make you breathe, but it does help. I don't necessarily need you to, but it does help, and I want you to. So, with that being said, where you are and as you are, let's please take 3 deep breaths together. Maybe it's the first of your day that you have paid attention to. Jeez, sorry, it's cutting my face off. All right. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Interesting. Subtle. Ooh. Subtle energies, I feel like it, because of this being at the bottom of the deck, it was very subtle, it was less active, it was more about connection from self to spirit and communicating with that, whether that be to yourself or to the world or both. But it was like this weird, like little electrical charge from there to there. So rather than direction from self, directing from your highest self, higher self, but that's also direction from the sun, which is, again, kind of what I said with Venus and Mercury. And where they're taking that energy or how they're absorbing that energy into themselves. Be conscientious of the way that heat and turbulence affects you, because that stimulation may not be spirit, in fact, or may not be from you internally, at your core. It may be an external application in you, an external influence in you. Bottom of the deck is the Tower, inverted at that. Interesting. This kind of, again, goes back to that sign that I saw and the way that I feel the world kind of wants to shit on your dreams or squash your dreams or squash your potential or keep you working and mindless or whatever. This is an internal destruction that sort of severs ideas of you, or or does away with the shards of you that we've deemed appropriate, because they still have cutting edges. And that's just the bottom of the deck. The Nine of Pentacles, Four of Cups in the world. Oh, the Four of Cups is in intensity that can be calming in the storm, which is perhaps the irony of the subtlety that I felt against the ants in her pants about summer, all of this, anticipatory glow, and the way that makes the waters in us rush. Let's still take time for memory and to really absorb those things. And maybe that's people turning in more than outward. Maybe that's allowing this intensity to flow through safely. That doesn't necessarily mean isolated, but take with that what you want. Interesting. Nine of Pentacles in the world, but also birth inverted. And I feel like that's interesting for me specifically because it makes me want to laugh, like it's kind of doom and gloom, like antithetical. But it's not, it's still there, realistically so. It's still energy in this equation, in this collision, of, abundance and pleasure and growth and balance, and the way these energies connect and influence. And I feel like that's a grander perspective than what I even wanted to see initially. The two of these initially is maybe we look at the world and see a lot of lack, and it's hard not to look at the world and see a lot of wrong, and that can fuel a lot of emotional intensity within us. There's definitely been times where I cannot help but feel that in the world, and again, I feel like it's meant to be more of a hopeful statement than it is kind of this cynical throwing this in your face, the way that my natural person wants to take these kind of energies in my life, at least. Nine as a path number, or a whole number, because there are 9 chakras, not 7. I mean, there's much more than that, but the 7 is not the main picture. Information for you. And I think that's, God, in a very personal way, for as imbalanced as I can feel, I do still maintenance those things, and as imbalanced as my chakras can feel in this world, they are all open, they are all working, they are all spiraling. Then for you who maybe feels like there's something wrong with you, you are still here, you are still working, you are still growing. And that is kind of the beauty of the situation. And kind of, I think this serves as a reminder for that situation. Especially if you turn yourself to the earth, if you turn yourself to groundedness, if you turn yourself to not the past, but what roots you. Because the past is not a rooting idea of self, but ancestry is a rooting idea of self to a lot of degrees, in that, they can play together, but they don't necessarily have to be intermittent. or interwoven, because time is a silly thing. You know, and what is the past? But we do know where we came from. The timing is irrelevant. And perhaps that is the lesson of the world. And creating with that idea and moving forward. The show must go on. Oi. That was almost too perfect. Was almost too perfect. And it's not about entertaining the masses, but it is about how serving you serves more. Which is, again, the funny thing about, you know, capitalism and structure shitting on our dreams or our goals or our personhood daily in ads and what have you. Or even just, you know, shooting down ideas. It's not about the entertainment. People will pay for, and I've always said that, people will pay for what you do, or for why you do it. Not for what you do, but why you do it. And I think that is kind of the lesson in when you provide, your needs are ultimately met. The way that the way that karmic balances can really influence that, I think is something we'll also find out this full moon, or also begin to see a little bit more clearly. So with that being said, Jesus, sorry. Let's pull some numbers for time. Time in this funny space. I also think it's fair to say, as I'm seeing this now, on what I was saying about the past and your roots not necessarily having to go together, your roots can get tangled too, and that gets tangled in the mind. That gets tangled in the way we work with the mind. And just like any other fucking plant, will suffocate the system. So, again, you can get caught up in rooting and acknowledging your roots, acknowledging your inner self, acknowledging the natural parts of your ego that brought you here, acknowledging how it is you found yourself without necessarily having to relive the past in a negative way, or relive the past in any way, because you're a different person. Even remembering that is like fucking Future Boy coming back to try and understand the past and like still don't fit. And it doesn't have to fit. What we need to find is looseness, freedom, calm, expansion, not lose ourselves without logic and the weight of emotions, etc., etc. Alright. That works for me. I like the way that feels. Alright, one more time. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. Take a deep breath in. And exhale. before I forget, with the world in mind. It was like the same subtle charges wanted to conform around compassion, conform around, not conform, curve around the circumstance, which is maybe more of a gentility than forgetting logic will afford. So again, I feel like this is sort of antithetical or like the opposite of the last one I did. So watch both and see what happens while you're in the middle. Nine of Pentacles, Nine of Diamonds is our bottom of the deck here, which has come up for us before. I mean, it comes up collectively often, but Four of Hearts, Ace of Diamonds, Six of Wands. There is an offering in this ace. I mean, blackjack rolls could be 1 or 11, which is also 2, which is union coming from the 1. And then we have all even numbers, 4 and 6. I feel like this is a building structure. Through thought, through talk, through text, through... And I mean, theoretically, all of our ideas do get sent out into the ether for someone else to pick up. So, mindfulness of your thoughts, mindfulness of possibilities. And again, in a world that's like, is that possible? You should tell yourself, why not? It's interesting to me how often people will argue against possibility when even at an atomic level, reality isn't really here all the time, at all times. It's kind of neither here nor there. And rather than get stuck in that, you can see what other particles acknowledge the same reality or truth, or how we can communicate with other particles, how we can communicate with other people, how we can communicate with other energies in the world. And how, again with that Black Moon Lilith, 5th house, pleasure and service and all that jazz, in a world structured for Taurian work and social masses, unquestionable, unquestioning, whatever. This is kind of the miracle of communication and forging. I mean, trees forge families that way. The roots intermingle in that same way, and they create these sort of dynamic group structures because of that. And they're not necessarily communicating with fucking Facebook or tweets. They're communicating, some would argue, telepathically, through, vibration, through, they're still all nerve endings, so they're communicating through nerve endings in the same way that our skin-to-skin contact and our fascia communicate with our nervous system. It's building a structure. Don't let somebody cap off the top of your communal structure. That's for you to do. The 4s in this are also this 4 of Cups and 4 of Hearts. And I feel like that's both very emotional energy, very passionate energy, very intense energy. And like I said, there's a lot of things still in Pisces, and I think that is also a reminder to not let that run rampant. I think Mars wants to put a dam up. I think Venus wants to fucking rip it down. And both of those things can be very destructive when you could open it slowly, and responsibly and reasonably, and in a safe exchange kind of way, rather than let it build in secret, or let it build in hiding. And that's, again, honoring Black Moon Lilith in the 5th motherfucking house. Okay. Let me not talk myself into a circle. I feel like I gave you a really good idea. I feel like this is a pretty good map of, like, turning inward, my friend. Yeah. With the 9 of Diamonds, let's not forget how our body holds that energy, how we can ground and absorb that energy. And I say that with both of these bottom of the decks in mind. God, my bun is falling. And like my first reaction was a very intruding one, a very penetrative one, such as me. And I think that is understanding the power within you. Ironic on a full moon. Like, it's so powerful, and it is, it's beautiful. Like, let's bask in it. But also, let's not forget that is because it is through you and through your vessel and through your perspective and what have you. And the act of taking on that energy, taking in that energy, the ways that we can absorb that energy and channel that energy is the magic that we make every day. You know, whether that's breathing so you don't tell somebody to fuck off, or making something so you don't break something, or crying so that you can move on. That's very much, I think, the hard balancing act that will be showing itself. And I think it could be a really fun challenge, like any show, dear world. You know, the hard parts are all worth it when you're basking in your light. And finally get to see what that brings to the world. And maybe on a very small scale, that's just seeing what your piece can do to make somebody smile. And maybe on a bigger scale, that's understanding that, or recognizing that something that makes you smile makes a lot of other people smile. And perhaps that is what we need more of in the world in general. Not that smiling fucking fixes everything, but that positive energy will counter the frequency of negative energy. That is truth. Because the lower frequency has to match to rise the upper frequency. And that is what we forget about healing and growing spiritually, is rather than reach down to pick people up and get stuck, just rise, and people will rise with you. Yeah. Alright, now I'll leave it there. I think that's like the 3rd time I've said that. But nothing else is really coming. Just a lot of beautiful things. Just a lot of beautiful things. Yeah, we're creating a new Malkut. Alright, party on again. I will see you on the flip side. Happy full moon. Happy Libra energy. Happy day. Happy spring. And until then, party on.